Yeah. How would we explain how the movement of the pendulum would change over time?
Go ahead, Lupus. Come on up.
Hey, so just to preface, I'm just pretty much like agnostic towards the shape of our realm. I just have like some questions. You explained how Eratosthenes proves the Earth is flat or something like that.
Yeah, it's measuring angles off a flat plane.
Right, because of the shape of the shadows, the lines, right?
Well, you can only get an angle if one of the lines that's running along the ground is straight. If to call it an angle, it's got to be straight. So he's referencing a plane to get an angle. So he's measuring Earth flat. Yeah.
But one thing I've seen that I haven't heard talked about really is Foucault's pendulum. Foucault, am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yeah, Foucault pendulum.
Yeah. How would we explain how the movement of the pendulum would change over time?
How would we explain it? When you say we, as in how would flat earthers explain it? We don't have a positive claim that uses Foucault. It's their positive claim. Do you know how the globe uses Foucault as a positive claim?
The direction of the swinging is changing because the Earth is supposed to be tilted and rotating or something along its axis or something like that.
Close. It's a claim demonstration of two reference frames. So the pendulum is doing what pendulums do. Do you understand in principle that pendulums do not deviate? They only go back and forth. Do you understand that, first and foremost?
Yeah, of course.
Right. So their claim is that the pendulum moves back and forth and only back and forth, but appears... That would be not actually doing what I'm about to describe, only appearing to do it. Yeah? It appears to rotate around and knock over the dominoes because Earth is claimed to rotate underneath as a non-inertial turning reference frame. So pendulum, inertial reference frame, moves back and forth and only back and forth. Back and forth and back and forth. And then the second reference frame, according to the globe Earth, is the ground underneath the pendulum, rotating underneath the fixed frame in the inertial reference frame for the pendulum. So you understand it's an example according to the globe of two reference frames. There's more to this. Just need you to say yes if you understand.
That would be the claim, yeah.
Okay. So you understand that they are now claiming that there's a reference frame that the pendulum can be in, separate from a rotating, turning reference frame moving underneath the pendulum. We're all clear. Same question, but
yeah.
Good. Because that would mean Earth's turning underneath stuff, like aeroplanes, hot air balloons, helicopters, if you jump up and down. That would mean that on the equator, if you jump up and down, Earth's rotating underneath you as a non-inertial turning reference frame, as exampled by the Foucault pendulum, where it shows Earth's turning underneath as a non-inertial turning reference frame with an angular velocity of 1,000 miles an hour on the equator. So you launch a drone and Earth would turn underneath the drone at a rate of 1,000 miles per hour on the equator. And the drone, which isn't really flying away from you 1,000 miles an hour, it's just you turning underneath as a non-inertial turning reference frame, like shown in the pendulum. Said nobody ever, because drones don't whiz away from you 1,000 miles an hour on the equator. Nothing does. We don't exhibit this effect. Earth is not a non-inertial turning reference frame, but it needs to be if you're going to assert that Earth's turning to cause the star movement. So you need some physical demonstration that says, yeah, of course the Earth's turning with respect to an inertial reference frame. Check out my pendulum. Pendulums only move back and forth. But because Earth's turning underneath them, and aeroplanes, helicopters, hot air balloons, and if you jump up and down, and don't exhibit any effect of that, but we can show it in this pendulum. Or indeed, if you fire a bullet from a sniper's rifle, the Earth will turn underneath the bullet and you'll have to track the target ahead of where it is, because Earth's going to turn underneath a bullet and an aeroplane and a hot air balloon and a helicopter. And if it did, then a flight from Charlotte, North Carolina to Los Angeles would only take an hour and a half. because Earth would be turning underneath it like it turns underneath bullets and pendulums and footballs, like Neil deGrasse Tyson told us. You know, Earth turns underneath a football, making it go through the goal, and it would turn under the hot air balloon and blimp that was filming the game at a rate of 1,000 miles an hour on the equator. We'd notice. They just don't have any real proof that Earth's turning to cause the star rotation in a physical example, so they blag you with pendulums, and they blag you with footballs, and they blag you with bullets. But those effects that they are categorically claiming Earth exhibits with things like pendulums would affect flight times. You'd have shortened flights when travelling west. We don't. Earth's not turning.
Right. I can see how the pendulum wouldn't be a proof for either side, but I think the people who argue for the globe would say, like, well, you know, everything, the atmosphere, the air, the gases, everything is all moving with the Earth spinning. The same way if a bus was going at like a high speed and you jump on the bus, like it's as if you're not moving at all because you're moving like with the bus.
I gotcha. So if you're claiming now that Earth and atmosphere move together, there wouldn't be any deviation in the pendulum, there wouldn't be any deviation in the football, and there wouldn't be any deviation in the stars. Because they're claiming, I'm nearly there, they're actually claiming there is a Coriolis effect. And having a Coriolis effect requires 2 reference frames. Now, when I show a globe-believing numpty idiot with a fundamentalist religious belief that Earth's turning, that there is no effect to observe, they'll then deny their own claim that Earth has a Coriolis effect and 2 reference frames. You see, the pendulum's demonstrating that we have 2 reference frames according to a globe believer. That would be Earth turning underneath the pendulum. But when I point out that Earth isn't turning underneath aeroplanes, suddenly it's all moving together. Yeah, that denies that the globe has a claimed Coriolis effect to begin with, doesn't it?
So no one can explain the movement of the pendulum, I suppose.
Well, no, they do.
I can tell you all
Let's
about
just try it, Brian.
Very
hard enough
simply.
as it is. No, they do claim the pendulum shows 2 reference frames. That's what they do claim. It isn't demonstrating 2 reference frames. I debunk it with an aeroplane. That doesn't suddenly mean the original claim that there is 2 reference frames isn't real. The globe still claims there's 2 reference frames. When an anti-flat earther who is prepared to deny his own claim says Earth and atmosphere move together, then there's no Coriolis effect, is there? So it's fundamentally flying in the face of the original claim. Not, oh, well, it doesn't prove anything for anybody. No, it's still claimed to prove 2 reference frames, the very reference frames that are denied by the same person who'll claim them when they say Earth and atmosphere move together. Yeah, that's denying the original claim because the claim is 2 reference frames. That sort of stupidity will lead idiots like Simon Dan to say things like, and I quote, you and your reference frames have been ruined, end quote, Simon Dan. Which reference frames would they be? The 2 reference frames used in the pendulum to claim Earth spinning, Dan? You complete moron. Yeah, as an anti-flat Earth numpty, Simon Dan feels it's okay to deny the very premise that the globe has as a claim in the form of 2 reference frames by telling me that they are ruined. What, Earth and atmosphere spin together, anti-flat Earth numpties? Denying the claim there's 2 reference frames? We'd go around in this circle forever, but for my exasperation, having to point out to a claimant that there's 2 reference frames, in this case with a pendulum, that claiming there's only 1, Earth and atmosphere move together, pisses in the face of the original claim. I hope that's clear.
All right, thanks.
I got something at the end of that, Nathan, if that's okay.
Yes, go ahead,
Just
Brian.
a bit of information for the audience. The Foucault pendulum, if anyone wants to research this, if they're in a university and they're purely mechanical and there's no electromagnetic motor there is somebody assigned to make sure that that pendulum does what they want it to do. So if it starts going in the opposite way from what they want it to do, it's stopped and corrected to go in the way they want it to go in. if you go to places like the Los Angeles Observatory, I think it's the Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles, where they have one of these pendulums, they have an electromagnetic motor that makes sure that the pendulum does what they want it to do, right? But there's besides the fact that that completely takes away the whole claim about pendulums, and that doesn't take away from Nathan's point, but it takes away the claim that they're just doing this thing, because they're not. They're either doing it because an electromagnetic motor is making them do it, or there is a human being assigned to make sure that they keep doing what they want them to do in the direction they want them to do. And if they don't, they stop the thing and make it go in the direction they want it to go in. But all that doesn't matter, because the most important point on what I'm saying here is that they need to start that thing moving. You can stop any of these so-called pendulums and it won't start moving. It won't start doing its own thing unless a human gets it moving, makes it move, pulls it back and leaves it swing, or an electromagnetic motor does it. So if you don't have the motor doing it, you don't have a human doing it, what's the pendulum doing it? Doing nothing. It's a plumb bob. It's hanging there, stationary. If the earth was moving, and this is on an arm that's connected to the earth that's moving, then there is no way for that pendulum to not move. But it doesn't move, it sits stationary, just like a tower crane, because the earth's not moving. Thank you.